Hello, everybody. This is John Browning with the Building Your Life podcast. We are back again today with Cindy Arledge. And Cindy, we did a podcast, what's it been, like 2 years ago? Something
It
like that.
seems like yesterday, John, but I'm sure it's been years and
It's
years.
it's been a while, yeah. I mean, we've kept in touch a little bit, but we really haven't done another one, and it's time because
It
I wanted to
is.
bring you back. I know you got a new book, um, Family Emergency Handbook, right?
Yes, sir.
That's it behind you, right? The orange one there.
The big orange one.
The big orange one. So want to make sure people know how to get that. That'll be down in the show notes. We'll get the link as to where they can go get that. And and you live out in Texas, right?
Just north of Dallas.
North of Dallas, and of course I'm coming to you from West Palm Beach, Florida. So we're a ways apart, but we keep in contact with all this very cool technology.
It
So
is cool. It is cool technology. I love it.
yeah, but one of the things that I mean, we talked about this on the last podcast, and I talk about it a lot, is this idea that there's some inevitable things in life that happen, right? Yeah, death and taxes are two things that we're always going to have to deal with, right? So it's one of those things where we don't like to talk about either one, and I talk about both of them on a regular basis because it's so important. Even if it doesn't seem important to you, it's important to those that you love. It's important to your family. And when we were chatting back and forth over, I think LinkedIn it was, one of the things that you mentioned was, yeah, so many people just figure my family will figure it out. And it's just because I don't care. I'm not going to be around. My family will figure it out. So, in your opinion, what do you think of that statement?
Well, I feel like they don't have the experience to understand that they could live through it. I always tell people, what's the worst that could happen with a bad estate plan is that you could live through it.
Oh, oh, yeah, that's interesting.
Right? Because, in one of my books, I wrote about a friend of mine that went in for a simple surgery and had all their legal documents. They had it all done, but nobody could find them. And so, what ended up being a simple surgery ended up being emergency room psychosis, a 3 or 4 month stay in a nursing home. No one could pay the bills. No one contacted the insurance company, added almost $100,000 worth of expenses. And then they got better.
Oh,
And then, the family members that said that they had the financial attorney were in this big fight with the live-in, girlfriend. And so people don't understand, there is something worse than death. And that's why I really wanted to talk to you today about my family will figure it out. Because I don't know of any family that isn't going to go through a caregiving section of time. I don't know of any family that is immune from some kind of chaos or crisis. And what I've discovered is that caregiving stage can set the stage to not only destroy your finances, but it can destroy your family relationships.
that's a good point. Is away from all the financial issues is destroying the human element of it, right? And that's so in my book, Build a Life, Not a Portfolio, I talk about money's just a tool. It's what we use to build what we want, and understanding that concept is super important. And the same thing as you plan for and you think about, you know, the things we know are going to happen, and making sure that not just your finances are taken care of, but the human element. That's this idea of my family will figure it out is in some ways, the way I see it, right, is it's in some ways maybe, dare I say, a little selfish, right? It's you could do things pretty easily now while you're alive to make things so much easier for your family once you've passed on, or to your point, if you live through something you weren't expecting to live through.
It is. And I feel like it boils down. I could be wrong, but I feel like it boils down to being afraid of death. And our brains are logically, our brain is arranged to keep us alive and to look
Right.
out for danger. And so if we're going to think about a topic that scares us, our brain has biases in it that it will prevent us from doing that. So we have a biology issue of thinking about death. We
Yeah.
have a cultural issue. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about aging. We're not going to talk about those things. And then lacking that by the biology of trying to shut us down in the cultural, well, then where does a family go to learn how to talk about and plan for death, aging, and really the transfer of money? And so I feel like it's at our family level that we can really change society, and at a corporate level and a government level. One of the interesting things that I discovered after writing my book is that if you're active duty military person in this country, they make you fill out what's called a family care plan. And the family care plan is basically my family emergency handbook of what happens in a case of emergency. And they do that for their families, but they only do it for active military.
Only for active military. So if you're not active, you don't get, even like as a coaching bit, right?
No, well, no, I'm not a military person, but in my research that I've studied, it's only people going into war zones. Well, unfortunately, life is not without chaos, and
Right.
we live in a more complicated world than we've ever lived in before. Used to, if like when my mom and dad needed help, we would just wait for the bills to show up in the mailbox. That
Right.
was it. Well, nowadays, even our TV can send us a bill.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
so trying to figure out someone else's life for them is so much more complicated than it used to be. And so it's time for us to elevate our planning and plan better, and really overcome the biases in our brains that says, I've got time for that. It won't be that bad. They'll figure it out. I'll be gone. All those things that our brain tells us to put this off. But at the end of the day, I've never met a parent that didn't want their family to thrive. I
Yeah.
never have met a parent yet that said, "Well, I sure want them to suffer. Let me see how bad I can make it for them." They
Yeah.
don't they don't want that. And to your point, getting over the fear, there has to be something that makes us take action.
Yeah, and there really isn't anything making you take action for this. And it's not something you can, show off like, here's my new car out in the driveway or something like that, right? It's doesn't feel necessary.
Well, and I will tell you, we're my husband and I are in our fifth year of his stage 4 cancer journey.
Oh, yeah, you were
And
telling me all
so
about that.
getting a cancer diagnosis is like, oh, that is an action. It's a time to take action. You can recognize it.
Yeah.
But the challenge is that at that point you're dealing with so many other issues. Who wants to take the time to have to go organize your documents, figure out who can be the person to help you? The best time to do this is before the chaos begins. And the best time to do it is just start now, no matter where you're at. Um, as I've started doing more research into this caregiving piece of our country right now, we are in a caregiving crisis. We have never had so many families with the baby boomers and the sandwich generation. And, I've met a lot of younger people, and I love hanging around younger people because I learned something from them. And this young man told me one time, he said, well, my dad told my wife that, and I hope I can say this, you may have to blink this out, but he said, my dad told my wife that he's planning on her being his butt wiper. And I said, that's his plan. He goes, well, she don't want to do it. I said, he's being very clear. That's his plan.
Right.
And so, I really have had more traction with a younger crowd than the baby boomer crowd because they can kind of see the storm coming their way,
Right.
right?
Right.
Like they see, oh, dad's on heart medication now. Oh, dad had a stroke. Oh, dad doesn't drive as good as he used to. So I really see this as the younger children taking up the flag. But here's the twist. Instead of asking your mom and dad to get their life together, get your own life together first.
Ooh, there's a good idea, right? And
Because
then tell your mom and dad about it.
then
This is what
share
I
your
did and why.
experience with them.
Yeah.
Because chaos can happen at any time. I have a dear, dear friend of mine that has 7 children, and his 3-year-old got schwacked in the back of the head with the 7-year-old with the golf club because that happens on Saturdays with 7 kids.
Yeah.
And they took him to the hospital to get see if he had a concussion, and they found cancer.
Oh, geez.
And he's doing well. He's been through his chemo. I mean, he does have a disease that I don't think is curable, but his prognosis is good.
Hmm.
But at any time, any family at any time can be hit with an emergency.
But Cindy,
And what
it'll never happen to me. This happens to other people.
right, right. And I think when we go to bed at the end of the day and we look over our life and we think about it, there are daily reminders if we're willing to see them. We see our parents aging, we see them slowing down. We hear a story of, a child. And at the end of the day, it's when you look in the mirror, what kind of parent do you want to be? What kind of husband do you want to be? What kind of wife do you want to be? It's not about the money, it's about the relationships with the people that you love. And how much do you care enough about them to face your own mortality and make plans so that they don't have to figure it out?
Yeah. Well, and I find that a lot of people think they have it figured out, but they haven't talked to somebody like yourself who can show them things that they haven't thought about because obviously you haven't been through dying before. And even if you've been through maybe another, your parent passing away or something like that, things have changed likely since that has happened. Um, tax consequences are a thing, right? It's a real thing. That's me going back to the financial side, but um, being an executor is a big job, and it can be either made easier or a lot harder depending on whether you have made a plan and done a few things that aren't that hard, that aren't that expensive to begin with, which I'm assuming is exactly what your family emergency handbook is about how to do that. I know you, so
Well,
I
and
know it's a practical guide. So,
it's one I use. So the backstory of the Family Emergency Handbook is that almost 7 years ago, my ex-husband had a stroke. And he's a nice guy. We have 2 beautiful children, but I never expected to be brought into his emergency, right?
right.
But what I discovered is that we are connected to more people than we know through the people that we love. So when our 2 daughters dropped everything to help their dad make his life and death decisions for him, run his business, um, be the point person on his insurance, pay his bills, and take care of a herd of cattle in another state, they needed help at home. And so I stepped up to help them. And that's when I realized my ex-husband's emergency is my emergency through our loved ones.
Oh
And at
wow,
the
that's
same
that's really
time,
interesting.
yeah, we're connected to more people than we know. So I was sitting there, and there was a hurricane that came through Houston. I don't remember which one it was, but they showed the rescuers in rowboats delivering water to the community to lessen the impact of the disaster on the community. And I thought, wow, every family needs their own personal emergency response team to step in with the resources that they need, the teamwork, the plan to lessen the impact of this emergency on the family. And that's what that book is about.
I just had a conversation last night with a young lady who had gotten in a horrible situation, and she realized that she was somewhere she didn't want to be and didn't have anybody to call. She needed somebody to come get her. We sometimes we all need someone. This idea that we're all, independent, even financial independence is a fallacy, right? I can get you where you feel financially independent, but the reality of it is there are things that can be overwhelming to anyone's, unless maybe you're Elon Musk or somebody like that, right? There
He still
are,
has people.
and he has a whole group of people. That's
He
exactly right.
does.
But if you think it won't happen to you, it can. And it was so sad to listen to her story about. She's fine now, by the way. She managed to get out of that situation, but she didn't know who to call and didn't know what to do. What a horrible, frightening situation it would be to be in that type of a position.
Well,
And
it is. And that goes, there's a lot of what they call senior orphans
mm,
in our world right now. There are seniors that have outlived a spouse, they didn't have any children, they don't have any loved ones. And so there is a whole community of seniors that don't have anyone. And this book is not specifically designed for them, but it would help anyone. But it's more for like my daughter. She's got 3 kids under the age of 11. She's got, thanks to the mother-in-laws and myself and the other mother-in-law, she's got 4 grandparents, and 4 grandpas because we traded them out.
mm,
And so instead of taking care of the normal 4 aging seniors, she's got 6 that she worries about. And her friends and a friend of hers just had a tragedy in her family that her sister was unexpectedly injured,
mm.
and had to rush away. And so the husband was left taking care of their 3 kids, and Tiffany stepped in to help that family. And so emergencies are happening around us all day. But I feel like, to your point, it's what we don't know that we think, oh, I'm okay. But what if we find out something that we don't know? And what if that thing is that there could be a better way of planning? And so this idea of planning for these unavoidables, you mentioned, the executor piece. I don't specifically, there's a little section of end of life planning in the Family Emergency Handbook. But so we have I don't know of anybody who would have an unavoidable life without needing help from someone. You could have the birth of a baby. It doesn't have to be bad, right?
Mhm.
A
Yeah.
car wreck, a short-term illness. Everybody's going to need help. So why don't we make it easy so the family doesn't have to figure it out? The second unavoidable, you mentioned it, someone's going to have to be our executor. And if we are not proactive and we let our state do it for us, we've essentially told our family, I really don't care enough about you that I'm going to invest my time and make my decisions because the state's going to charge us. So I'm willing to lose whatever I have. And people say, oh, I don't have very much. Well, you must not value what you do have if you're going to let the state charge you and cost you more. So,
And they don't do it cheap.
and they don't do it,
They're
and
not
they
they're
don't do,
not
they
less
won't do what you
expensive.
want. And so the unavoidable of after I die, someone's going to have to take care of this.
Yeah.
So am I let my family figure it out, or I'm going to get over those biases and have the hard conversations? And then the third piece of it is, and this is the bigger piece that I enjoy, is nobody dies naked. You know what I mean? I don't know anybody who died naked. And so there's stuff that has to be taken care of.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we worry about the financial stuff, but we don't think about the unfinancial stuff. Like for me, the biggest inheritance that I have received, the greatest legacy I have received is really the belief that I have gifts and talents that can meet world's needs and make the world a better place. And that was cultivated intentionally by my parents. And I am cultivating those in my grandkids. So it's this idea if we're going to leave something behind, why not be intentional about it and leave just a fantastic legacy that has more meaning than just the money.
Yeah. I keep thinking of stories to tell, but you undoubtedly have more stories. I'm just going to tell one real quick. And this is not, again, about an emergency. I always think about what you do, in the event of, a death. But it's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about it that much in the event of an emergency because we all have them. You think it's not going to happen to you, but inevitably in the course of your life, there's going to be an emergency where you need help. You need somebody to come in, help you do something, take care of the kids, um, take you to the hospital, call an ambulance, do something for you. There's always going to be that. But in the thing that I just thought of is I had two clients, unfortunately, last year in December pass away. By the way, they were not old. One of them was 56, one of them was 55. Okay, I want to let that sink in for just a minute, right? I mean, that is not old. Well, okay, to me, that is definitely not old. But here's the deal. One of them had done the planning, had a trust set up, and the other one thought she had done the planning. She had a will, but it still went into probate. The one that had the plan, the trust and the gifting plan, everything all set up so it went automatically to the right place and didn't cause any tax issues or anything else, he was done within 3 months. So his estate was all settled in 3 months. Hers, because she thought she had planned, she had a will, still going on. I'm still helping the state, by the way, since it's in probate. So it's in a court, the court appointed a law firm. They're charging lots of money. And then I'm helping out as well for free. And it's, like I said, still going on. The people that she wanted to get the money, it still had to go through probate. So.
Well, and that's the power of this family emergency handbook, why I really love it so much. Gerald and I have been using it since I wrote the book, and that's what I do. I always think of an idea and then I use it, I test it myself, and and then I'll bring it to my clients and stuff. And now I'm ready to share it with the world because there are so many family caregivers that need just the breadcrumbs, right? And so if your second client that thought she had done it had done her family emergency handbook, she would have pulled it out because that's putting it into, there's 12 categories of information to put information in. She would have gone, huh, that didn't get signed. Maybe I need to call an attorney. And so just having the things easily found, but that's just the first piece of it. The second piece of it is having conversations, like actually preparing people in advance. And I have, she's turned into a dear friend, went through the program. And as it turned out, her mother, she had to be the one to sign her mother's DNR. Her dad was out of town. She'd had a series of, illnesses, and her name's Christy. She's in the book. She talks about being in the hospital and signing the DNR. And she said, she called me later. She said, Cindy, you saved me a lifetime of therapy. Because I realized in that moment, because of you, I had had the conversations with my mom.
Yeah.
I didn't make the decision. My mom made the decision. And my mom was counting on me to execute her decision for her. And yes, I'm sad. Yes, I miss her. Yes, I'm grieving, but I'm not feeling guilty that I killed my mom. I mean, that's as plain as you can get, right?
Right.
And so it's not just a matter of putting the information together. It's rich conversations and really helping each other make it easy to help each other. Because here's what I know for sure. Our lives are more complicated than we realize, period.
Yeah.
You start listing out the accounts that you have, your checking accounts, your financial accounts, your saving, you go, whoa, oh, I didn't know I had that many, and do a little search. I don't know, in Florida, I'm sure they have the same thing. You can do that asset search to see if you've lost any
Yeah.
deposits from AT&T that you forgot about when you
I
moved
know.
to 6 years ago. And I put that information in the book too, like do a little asset search on yourself, see what you can find.
Yeah.
And just, there's the hard pieces like the finances, but there's a section in there called end of life planning. And I've already picked out the music that I want to have. I've already decided that I want to be cremated. I've made all these decisions and made it super easy for my family to not have to, well, what would mom have wanted? Well, here's what mom wants. And it's interesting. And back to the piece, the family caregiving is a time where, and tell me if this isn't true in your family, there's one sibling that is the caregiver. Mom and dad go down. I was the only daughter. I was the youngest. It was everybody looked at me. Oh, you're going to take them, which I was happy to do.
Yeah.
And there's armchair quarterbacks that, well, you didn't do that right, and you didn't do that right, and so then you can have the family in conflict. Um, and like I said, live through it, right? And so why would you want your family to have to figure that out?
Hmm. Yeah. It's true. And like, for my family, I don't mind telling people my my older sister is probably it. And she knows she's it. But I do tell her, I have 100% confidence in her. We have a great relationship, and she's closer, and she would be the one. I would do whatever I needed to do to help her, but ultimately there's got to be one person sort of leading the charge anyway. And so yeah, it'll be her. I promise not to be that armchair quarterback, because i I see it happen, and I've talked to you enough, and she knows that stuff better than I do too. So yeah,
Well,
no,
that's
I think
great. If there's
that's
only
true.
two of you, you got any more siblings out there
Yeah,
hanging
yeah, we
around?
have another sister, and I think she would not be the caretaker, but I don't think she would be the armchair quarterback. But yeah, she's not in a position, right, to help a whole lot. So it would be me and my older sister, I think. But it's something that hey, my dad's older, and we've talked about, hey, this is what we'll do and all that. But yeah.
Well, the interesting, I mentioned earlier, Gerald's in his fifth year of stage 4 cancer, and things are changing. His cancer numbers are coming up. So we're having more and more and more conversations about what does quality of life look like for you? Because he was given the opportunity to start back on chemo. And we figured, oh, it'll be like the 12 rounds that he did 5 years ago. There would have been a decision made. But as doctors shared, well, it would be every other week for the rest of your life.
Oh.
And so that was not a decision that he was like, that's not how I want to spend my time. And so there's a excellent book called Being Mortal by Dr. Atwal Gawande that I just recommend everyone read. And it's an idea about how do you define quality of life? And he tells the story in there of a guy going into surgery, and the daughter had asked the dad, how do you define? He said, watching the Cowboy game on Sunday. She's like, good. And in the middle of the surgery, the surgeon came out and he said, look, there's something that happened. We got to make a decision. Which way do you want me to go? And the daughter said, which way lets him watch the Cowboys on Sunday? And he goes, this way. And she said, do that. And so just even like, do you want your family to figure that out? Or could we have some, conversations around what does quality of life look like for you? And how can we as a family know what that is and all be on the same page to support you?
Right. That's right. Yeah. Because you're absolutely right. We are in a caregiving crisis. And because we haven't talked about it, I think that crisis is a little bit worse than it necessarily needs to be in many cases. I mean, we have adults, say my age, that are quitting their jobs to take care of mom and dad, and there's really not enough assets for them to do that. And then they sacrifice, again, I always go back to the financial side. Sorry, it's just what I do. But then it's like, what do they do about their retirement that's not being built up? and then they're spending down assets from mom and dad for them to, it's just, it becomes a bit of a mess because people don't realize how expensive caregiving can be, not just in dollars and cents, but in the stress is real.
Well, and you gave me goosebumps, John. I'm in a caregiving group, and there are millions of people suffering of exactly what you just said. And it's okay. I think that the financial piece is really, to your point, your book is about, it's not the money, it's what the money can do for you, right? And
Right.
so when you have enough resources to cover your quality of life that you want to create, and I have never seen so much pain of exactly what you said. An adult child that had to quit their job, typically it's the woman, let's be real.
Let's be
Let's be
real.
real.
Yep.
That now her health's in danger. She's not taking care of her kids. She's not taking care of herself. Here's the piece that to me is truly tragic. They start getting into this victimhood mentality. And then be it dementia or pain, their loved one can't appreciate the sacrifices that are being made for them. And the other siblings, I'm going to just be blunt, have enough self-esteem or healthy boundaries to not sacrifice their future for someone else's lack of planning. And now you have the one that is mad at the ones who won't. And it is destroying families. And to your point, it's based on this not being prepared financially.
Mm.
It's this is a huge, if we could fix this, John, of having families make appropriate planning to plan for their health care as they age, it would just solve so many issues.
Yeah. I had always come up with a story. I've got there's another story out there where the kids are fighting now. I had a client pass away, and the kids are clients too. And what had happened is, for whatever reason, one kid like was on all the accounts, and so all of a sudden they got this influx of inheritance, and the rest of the kids didn't. And they said, "Fine, the reasonable. We'll split it up. We'll send you the money." But the one kid had tax implications, right? And significant ones because it was a big chunk. So they had to pay out all the state tax and all the stuff you got to do, right? And the other two kids were like, "Wait a second, this is not what we got." "Well, you don't understand. I had to pay taxes, I had to pay lawyers, I had to pay this, that, and the other thing." And so it's become this real contentious thing. And they're all clients, so I don't really want to get involved, right? But I am trying to explain sort of how all this works, and it's really tough because people don't want to believe it, right? So, but if you've done that planning beforehand and you set it up beforehand, how much better is it?
Well, it's like we need to take life into a new gear, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, for those of us that know how to drive a stick shift,
Yeah,
right?
that'd
We've
be
got
me.
that
I
low
love stick
gear.
shift.
Yeah, and most people don't understand that it's the downhill side of life that's the most treacherous. Because the upsills,
Just like when you're climbing a hill, going back down is where you twist your ankle.
it's the most, I walked 500 miles across Spain and completed the Camino de Santiago. And I went up and down hills. I crossed the Pyrenees, and people think it's the uphill climb, getting the kids to school, getting them raised, getting them self-sufficient. That's the hard side of life. It is not. It is the downhill side of life when you're navigating health changes and caring for your, geriatric parents while you're worried about your kids and grandbabies. And it's the down and did I save enough money to, assure myself? And the good news is, for me, I think the quicker you can find out that you're not where you need to be, the faster you can make some changes. Because with knowledge, I feel like comes power. And so, what if you're 55, 60 years old and you realize you don't have enough money? You can change your lifestyle. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do while there's still time, but knowledge, and that's why I feel like where you come in, I don't do any of the financial stuff, John. I feel like everybody needs a John on their team because that's how families thrive, not on what they know, but who they can gather to surround themselves. And are they willing to plan better to get a better outcome?
Yeah. And to your point too, is like the building the right team is imperative. My wife's a nurse, my sister's a nurse. So, we got the medical side, at least somebody who knows what I don't know, which is a lot on that side of things. And, my wife and I owned two home helpers franchises
Mm.
when we were up in Illinois and Chicagoland area. So we kind of get the caregiving side of things. And I get the financial side of things, but then there are all those human elements that you address that I don't understand because I haven't I haven't fully lived that. I may have watched some other people live it, so I might know a little bit more than some, but I haven't I haven't been through it myself. And I imagine you tell me it's a whole different story when you're going through it yourself.
It is. And two pieces of that, right? No story's ever the same. What I experience, even in my own life, the first round of Gerald's cancer is different than the second, because it's always different.
Yeah.
But what I've found is that there are some, I call them formula for living, just some basic beliefs that help me get through anything. And so those are the kind of tools I like to give families. And this whole family emergency handbook is the idea is that it's better to prevent a loss than it is to recover from one. I mean, isn't that true financially?
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And that's one of the secrets that after my mom and dad passed away 8 months apart 19 years ago, and lawsuits were filed, and I have a brother that wouldn't speak to me. And I was totally unprepared for the experience of losing family relationships over a shared experience, a shared inheritance, that I became an expert at the human side of this planning.
Hmm.
And now that I've gone through it with my ex-husband, and there's so many stories, like you said, so many stories I haven't shared, because we could be here for, days and
I know.
weeks.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, preparing and preventing a loss is easier than recovering from one. And this whole book, Family Emergency Handbook, is about preventing loss before it happens through a very common sense, practical, tactical 3 steps. Let's do this. And then the benefits of it are for Gerald and I, we put it together to make it easier for the family to help us, but it ends up helping us. And I'll give you a perfect example. We used to live on a ranch north of here, and big storm came through because that's what happens in Texas.
Yeah.
We like to and I needed the telephone number of the electric company to call them and tell them that my power was out.
Yeah.
Well, I went to my PEP plan. That's what I call it, personal emergency preparedness plan. Pulled up my how do you take care of my house, and there's my information for the electric company, the water company, the gas company, the septic tank company, the guy who does my pool, the guy who mows my yard. All of those were in one place. I knew
Yeah.
exactly where to go. I knew exactly where it was. And so did all my family members that are willing to help me. And
Right.
so once you do it, it becomes like this way of life of, oh, I know where my stuff is and
Yeah.
I can get to it like that. And then that builds confidence that you feel like you can handle just about anything.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do they most easily get in touch with you? If they're listening in right now, I want them to be able to easily get in touch with you. And of course, we'll put everything down in the show notes as well. What's the best way?
Well, the Family Emergency Handbook is available on Amazon. You just order from Amazon, and I don't recommend the Kindle version, even though I put it up there because there's forms. But I did something that I'm hoping will make it easier for caregivers. And I have family caregiving resources, and you can actually download the book instantly. And we added in all the forms that every family member could need.
Oh, wow.
So I
Okay.
know instead of having to wait for Amazon to deliver it, even though they're fast,
That's right.
you can just download the book and start right in it that day. And so I'm really excited about this family caregiving resources, and I'll be adding additional tools. But right now, this is a major first step.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And that's the website that they go to.
Yes, I'll
Okay.
send it to you so you can
All right. So it'll be down
family
there below.
caregiving resources, and we can put it up there. And it's really exciting. I just took the family emergency handbook, took out I had a fictional story in there because as an author you like to write things, but I decided to take the fictional story out and add all the forms so that people can really start, in on what they need to do.
Right. It doesn't matter how much you plan if you don't execute the plan. So let's do it right now while we're thinking about it. It's phenomenal. I love that you did that. And it's right there online.
It's just right there. I mean, there's really no excuse. I mean, it's right there online. You put in your credit card, download it, and you start working on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you
And it
feel
only
good.
costs what, $5,000, $6,000, right?
You know what? It's $29.
29 bucks.
$29. And here's the way I feel about it. We almost need to pay something because if we don't value it.
That's absolutely right. True. Yep.
And if a family won't spend $29 to make it easier so that they don't have to figure it out, uh,
That's right.
then what is that? That's not even that's not you and I being able to go to Whataburger here in Texas.
Yeah, we can't even do that. Not anymore.
We can't get a fast food meal for $30.
That's right. That's right. Man, it's been a long time since I've been to a Whataburger, but yeah. Well, I guess I was there a year ago or so to visit my son, and we went to. I said, "Oh, we got to go to Whataburger." My wife's like, "What is that?" So she got introduced.
Well, good. And are you a convert?
You know, I'm not a fast food guy anyway, but I did. No, they're good. They're good. I still, I'm still I'm still partial to McDonald's. I know they got their
Oh,
problems, but I'm still partial. Yeah, the McDonald's fries. I don't know why.
well,
Or my person steak and shake is really, but you can't hardly find a steak and shake anymore.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'm like you. We don't eat out, much anymore. But as a Texan, Whataburger really is.
Whataburger,
I
you
mean,
gotta go. Yeah, it's what it is.
it is. It's good stuff.
Well, thanks so much for being on with me. This is invaluable. And go get the book. I'm going to do it, and because I'm sure I haven't done everything in that you have taken the time and the research and really thought through. I'm sure I haven't done it all. So I'm going to get it. So everybody go out there and get that book. And everyone who has ever listened to me before, just go out to guardianrockwealth.com. There's all kinds of free information. We have a daily newscast that goes out every morning, about 5 to 10 minutes of audio, keep you up to date on the markets. We've got the YouTube page, all sorts of ways to get in touch with us. Or you can bring out your phone, text 321-421-5213, the word life, and you'll get all of my information, all kinds of links. So that is it. Thanks so much for joining us, Cindy. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Well, John, thank you so much for having me back. And what I really appreciate about you is that you see the people that you work with as human beings. I mean, you see the humanity. Yes, you're the numbers guy. Yes, you're trying to help them with their money, but at the end of the day, John Browning is a man about people and the service that you provide. I'm just so grateful to be in your sphere, and thank you for having me here. And I'm just grateful to be able to spend this time with you.
Well, again, appreciate that and appreciate you.
All right. Till next time.
Till next time, we'll see everyone.
Thank you.